Hey Days of Our Lives, it's Radhika from Radhika Storyline, and we're going to talk about Days of Our Lives spoilers for the week of July 27th through 31. But first, please hit subscribe if you're not already following us. So, this week on Days of Our Lives, we've got abduction chaos, family blame, romantic complications, and one of those classic Salem situations where absolutely everybody is suspicious, angry, or one bad conversation away from becoming unglued. And honestly, that is when this show is at its best. Nobody is calm, nobody is minding their business, and every secret is hanging by a thread. So the first big mess involves Kristen DiMera, because of course it does, and her swap plan getting completely derailed. Day spoilers say Kristen won't be able to switch places with Lexie Carver the way she intended, which is honestly a disaster for her because that plan was clearly supposed to keep the heat off her and move somebody else into the line of fire. Instead, Kristen could wind up being the one shipped off to the DiMera private island herself, and I mean, talk about your plan backfiring in the most dramatic way possible. It's one thing to plot. It's another thing to end up trapped by your own plotting, which is very DiMera and very poetic. And while Kristen's situation is spinning out, Lexie is facing something much worse. She's going to get even sicker and land in the hospital, which is awful. And that means Abe Carver and Theo Carver are on the verge of learning that Lexie is dying all over again. Honestly, that phrase alone is devastating. There's cruel, and then there's making a family relive grief they thought they had already survived. So naturally, Abe and Theo are going to hold EJ responsible for the resurrection drug failure, and you really cannot blame them for that. If your loved one is slipping away because some shady miracle drug didn't do what it was supposed to do, you are not going to sit there and be gracious about it. You're going to want answers, payback, and probably somebody's head on a platter. And EJ already has enough on his plate without another furious family coming for him. Because on top of Lexie's crisis, he also has to worry about Johnny maybe blowing the lid off his cover-up scheme. And honestly, this part feels especially juicy because Johnny having a problem with EJ framing Holly Jonas with those pills makes perfect sense. That's the kind of thing that pushes family loyalty right to the breaking point. You can overlook a lot in Salem, weirdly enough, but once innocent people start getting framed and dragged into someone else's mess, that's when even the people closest to you start saying, no, this has gone too far. So Johnny may end up arguing that all of this has crossed a line. And I mean, he wouldn't be wrong. Framing Holly is dirty work. It's reckless, it's selfish, and it creates a whole new layer of fallout that didn't need to exist. That said, and this is where Salem always gets tricky, there is one crime EJ is apparently not responsible for. Because while some people suspect EJ is the one behind Gwen Rizczech's disappearance, Day spoilers say Dmitri von Luskner is actually the one running a kidnapping revenge plot. And honestly, that is such a Salem twist. EJ is guilty of plenty, just not that specific crime, which somehow almost makes it funnier. Like, congratulations, sir, on being innocent of one thing. Now, over in the Gwen storyline, Leo Stark and Rafe Hernandez are going to track down Dimitri's hideout and find Gwen being held captive there. So right away, that gives the week some full-on rescue energy, and I like that. I mean, a hideout, a captive, a revenge plot, Leo in the middle of it, Rafe trying to manage it all, that is solid soap material. Leo is also going to offer Dimitri a deal that doesn't go over well, which honestly sounds exactly like something Leo would do. He always thinks he can talk his way into controlling the moment, even when the moment is one wrong word away from exploding. And when Leo's deal flops, he apparently pushes Dimitri to make one with Rafe instead. So no matter how the details shake out, the good news is Gwen is eventually going to walk free thanks to Leo and Rafe. And honestly, good for them, because somebody in this town needs a win. But I'm also very curious about the emotional wreckage after that rescue, because being kidnapped for revenge is not exactly something you just shrug off and move on from after a cup of tea. And with Dimitri involved, you know there's going to be extra attitude on top of the danger. And then we have Kat Green, who had a hunch EJ was Gwen's abductor, and she is going to be surprised when she learns he's not to blame. So that's interesting because Kat is still committed to EJ's downfall, but the spoilers also tease that she may have real feelings for him whether she wants to admit it or not. And honestly, that is so inconvenient in the most soap opera way possible. Nothing complicates revenge like attraction. You set out to destroy a man, and then suddenly you're catching feelings? That is a mess. That is a loose end. That is exactly how smart people end up making foolish choices. So Kat's going to keep working against EJ, but now she may be doing it while emotionally compromised, which is never a clean place to operate from. And I mean, if you hate somebody and want them exposed, the last thing you need is a tiny romantic soft spot making you hesitate at the wrong time. Salem has chewed up stronger plans than that. Now, over with Chanel Dupree DiMera and Johnny, we've got a very different vibe for a minute, because Chanel is going to show off some creativity in the bedroom. So yes, there is apparently still time for romance in Salem, even while kidnappings, cover-ups, and medical disasters are happening all over town. Honestly, good for them. But the spoilers make it clear this is the calm before the storm, because Chanel has some scary pregnancy-related issues in her future. And that instantly changes the tone. One minute things are sweet and playful, and the next minute you're bracing for bad news. That is such a classic soap whiplash move. And then there's Chad DiMera and Belle Black, who may make some shocking discoveries during their Italy trip. So now we've got international mystery energy entering the chat, because Stefano DiMera apparently set something in motion and more twists are brewing around that whole situation. And you know, if Stefano's name is attached to anything, nobody is getting a simple answer. It's never one clue and done. It's always layers, secrets, old grudges, and some diabolical thread reaching into the present from beyond the grave, because even 6 feet under, Stefano somehow still runs Salem's stress levels. And while Chad and Belle are digging into that mystery, the spoilers also tease that they may fall harder for each other along the way. Honestly, I can see it. Put two attractive people on a trip, add danger, suspense, emotional vulnerability, and a shared mission, and suddenly sparks are flying while everybody pretends they're just focused on the case. Sure. Of course. That always holds up for about 10 minutes. So yeah, there may be some sizzling scenes ahead there, and I would not be shocked at all if the mystery and the romance start feeding off each other in a big way. So overall, the week of July 27th through 31 sounds packed. We've got surprising news, fierce face-offs, one abduction twist, a devastating medical blow, and enough blame flying around to start 3 separate family wars. And honestly, what stands out to me is that this whole week feels built around exposure. Plans are getting derailed. Cover-ups are getting challenged. Wrong assumptions are getting corrected. Hidden feelings are getting harder to ignore. And when a week on days is built like that, somebody always ends up wrecked by the truth. So let's talk theories, because this spoiler set is practically begging for it. First up, I suspect Kristen's failed swap plan is going to do more than just inconvenience her. I think this may be the moment where her whole sense of control starts slipping, and that is when Kristen gets especially dangerous. If she really is at risk of being shipped off to the DiMera private island herself, then she's not just facing embarrassment. She's facing total loss of leverage. And Kristen hates losing leverage. She can handle enemies, she can handle chaos, she can even handle a scandal if she thinks she can spin it, but she does not handle powerlessness well at all. So I could absolutely see her scrambling to come up with another move, another lie, or another pressure point to keep herself from being the one sacrificed. And honestly, if Lexie's health keeps getting worse at the same time, Kristen's position becomes even shakier because the emotional stakes around this are huge. Nobody is going to have patience for DiMera games if a dying woman is caught in the middle of them. So my guess is Kristen may find herself in the very rare position of having almost no room to maneuver without looking completely heartless, and that's saying something in Salem. Next, I'm betting Abe and Theo's anger toward EJ is going to hit hard, and not just in a one-scene confrontation kind of way. I think this could become one of the emotional engines of the week, because finding out Lexie is dying all over again is not the kind of blow you process quietly. That is the kind of news that leaves people crushed, furious, and looking for somebody concrete to blame. EJ is the obvious target here, and whether he sees himself as responsible or not may not even matter. In the court of grief, perception wins. And you know what makes that even worse for EJ? He's already carrying other secrets and accusations. So even if he tries to defend himself on the resurrection drug issue or deflect part of the blame, nobody is likely to be in the mood to hear it. He has burned too much trust already. At this point, his reputation is working against him in every room. I mean, if a lamp goes missing in Salem, somebody probably assumes EJ had a hand in it. That is how bad the optics are. Another possibility is that Johnny becomes a much bigger problem for EJ than EJ expects. Because it's one thing to have outsiders accusing you of going too far. It's another thing entirely when your own son starts looking at you like, no, this is wrong. And Johnny objecting to Holly being framed with those pills is important because it signals there may still be a line he refuses to cross, even if EJ already pole vaulted over it. I wonder if Johnny's outrage pushes him into action, not just argument. Maybe not something dramatic and immediate, but enough to rattle EJ and make him realize the cover-up cannot hold forever. And honestly, the phrase blowing the lid off is doing a lot of work here. That doesn't sound like a mild disagreement. That sounds like a serious threat to the whole scheme. So I could see Johnny forcing EJ into panic mode, and panic mode EJ is not elegant. He gets cornered, defensive, and more likely to make another bad choice trying to contain the first one. That is how one scandal turns into a whole chain reaction. Here's another one. The fact that EJ is not behind Gwen's disappearance may actually create more trouble for him, not less. Because on paper, you would think being innocent of the kidnapping would help. But in Salem, when you're guilty of enough other terrible behavior, people don't exactly throw you a parade for not committing one additional felony this week. So Kat learning that EJ didn't abduct Gwen may complicate her strategy emotionally, sure, but I don't think it clears him in the eyes of the town overall. If anything, it just spreads the chaos around. Now the town has to worry about Dimitri's revenge plot while still dealing with EJ's separate messes. And that's where I think Dimitri becomes really interesting. I suspect his kidnapping revenge plot is not just about Gwen as a person. It feels symbolic. It feels like payback designed to make a point. So even though Leo and Rafe are eventually going to help Gwen walk free, I could see the rescue itself opening up a new set of grudges and consequences. Because revenge stories rarely end neatly once the captive is safe. Somebody still wants satisfaction. Somebody still feels wronged. Somebody still has unfinished business. And honestly, Leo being involved in the rescue makes me think the tone is going to have that perfect day's mix of danger and absurdity. Leo offering a deal that doesn't work is such a wonderfully bad idea. I mean, bless him, but he always acts like he can outchat a hostage situation. So I'm betting his failed attempt actually helps show just how serious Dimitri is. Then when Rafe steps in as the person Dimitri can really negotiate with, it gives the whole thing a more grounded center. That balance could make those scenes really fun. Next, I wonder if Kat's real feelings for EJ are going to become the biggest obstacle to EJ's downfall. Because when the show says she may have feelings whether she wants to admit them or not, that usually means denial is already losing. And once that happens, every decision gets murkier. Every piece of evidence feels heavier. Every move against him starts coming with emotional static. So I could see Kat telling herself she's still fully committed to taking EJ down while quietly hesitating at the exact moments when decisiveness matters most. And that would be incredibly ironic. Because Kat started from a place of suspicion and mission, and now she may be getting tangled up in the very man she once ruined. That is textbook soap trouble. That is the kind of setup where the heart becomes the traitor. And honestly, those stories can be so good when the character is angry about their own attraction. I like that energy. It's messy, it's tone-deaf, it's self-defeating, and it is deeply entertaining. Another possibility is that Johnny and Chanel's romantic calm is being used very intentionally to make the coming pregnancy-related scare hit even harder. Because if the show gives them a playful, intimate beat first, then the future medical concerns land with more emotional force. You see what they stand to lose. You see the softness before the fear. And honestly, that's smart storytelling, even if it is emotionally rude to the audience. Like, thank you for the sweet scene, now here comes dread. So I suspect whatever is coming for Chanel may not explode immediately this week, but the groundwork is being laid. And if Johnny is already at odds with EJ over the Holly setup, then adding fear for Chanel into Johnny's emotional world could make him even more raw, more impulsive, and more likely